Rega is a British manufacturer, mainly of turntables, but they do make quite an extensive range of electronics, and all of it of very high quality. But there's a sense within Rega that the idea of value has to be expressed in every product they do. In that sense, I think Rega is a little bit like Magnapan in that they make high-end products, but there's always a tilt in the value direction. The Planar One is the entry-level turntable in their line, and the Planar One Plus, which is what's on review here today, is a Planar One with an integrated phono preamp so that you can just plug it into a stereo system and go. All right, what's special about this? Because if you're going to watch a 15 or 20 minute video about a turntable, you probably want to know what the heck is going on here. Well, Rega is well known for having high-end sensibilities, even though their orientation is towards value. And I'll tell you, there are some very high-end, refined sounds coming out of the Planar One Plus. I'll go into detail in a little bit later, but the ability of this turntable to do high definition and imaging is outstanding. It's not without its flaws. Nothing at $725 is without its flaws, but as you'll see, this is quite an exceptional turntable, and I think a lot of you would enjoy it, and some of you would probably not like it, so stay tuned. All right, let's talk about the turntable. You would think a turntable is pretty simple. Here is the Planar One Plus, and indeed it is fairly simple, but as with all things in high-end audio, details matter. And I think Rega is particularly a company that works overtime on developing the secret sauce and refining the minute details so that there isn't the blockbuster element to a lot of their products that makes you go, oh, well, that uses plasma drivers, or it uses power directly from the sun, or something like that. It's not the Mondo technology takeover of all time. It's refinement, but refinement with what must be very careful listening, because as I said, this is a pretty good sounding turntable in a number of important ways. Anyway, so it has the RB110 tone arm, well known. It's a straight, simple tone arm. Very important note, it comes already set up with the cartridge pre-aligned. It's a Rega carbon cartridge, moving magnet. So it comes with the carbon cartridge already installed and aligned. And I thought very interesting, you just slip the counterweight on and run it up against the stop, and you don't have to measure tracking force. It's preset for the correct tracking force given this cartridge and knowing where the cartridge will be positioned. Easy peasy. Rega is famous for not attending to or thinking that vertical tracking angle is super important, but on top of that, again, they know the cartridge, they know the tracking force, they know the average thickness of records, and so they can design it so that the VTA is correct, and you don't have to worry about it or do anything or get all into the fancy measurements that VTA can involve. It's got a 3-point suspension. They're just elastomeric feet as far as I can tell, so there's not really any setup there other than leveling. I'm using a small level right now, but I recommend a bigger level than that. But turntable is leveled. It has a felt mat. I don't know how well you can see that because it's black, but a thin felt mat Rega seems to like felt. And then an aluminum, I believe, platter. It's covered with some material, so I can't quite see what it is. It's very lightweight. There's a plastic disc and a belt drive. The plinth or the base looks to me to just be a sheet of MDF. Again, maybe there's some fancy material going on there, but you're not paying for really fancy parts. You may be paying for fancy engineering here. That's kind of the Rega thing. Let's keep it simple so that the price can be reasonable, and we'll take it from there. It's a simple turntable design. It does have a dust cover. I don't particularly like dust covers, so I left that off, but it does come with a dust cover for those of you who prefer to operate your turntables that way. But, okay, no magic sauce here as far as I can tell, although Rega's well known for, sweating little tiny details behind the scenes. But let's get down and talk about what the listening is like. Okay, let's talk about the sound quality of the Rega Planar 1 Plus, because I want to explain why I think this is such an exceptional turntable and why it might not be for some of you. The basics here are the dynamism of the sound. It just on dynamics, this thing really, really gets down to it. That's snare hits, that's the leading edge of transient attack kinds of instruments like guitar or piano, beautifully handled, dynamic, punchy, really involving kind of sound without being harsh or overcooked or ugly. So I like dynamic music. I bet you like dynamic music. That was a big thing. All right, that's point number one. Point number two is the sound staging is really deep. That gives you a sense of the performers being on stage. It's not always that way. There are some recordings that, but frankly, in my estimation, might not be that well done. My favorite Previn, Rachmaninoff Symphony No. 2, was a little flat. You don't want a turntable or really any other component that's gonna do special effects work. You want it to work right and reveal what is there. But when there was depth in the recording, it did an exceptional job of giving you that sense of three-dimensional space. It also does an interesting thing with regard to space, which, again, I want to emphasize you may like, you may not like. I listened to Attack and Release, a Black Keys album. Love the Black Keys, really like that album, but the sound staging accuracy, especially in that depth dimension, was sufficiently revealing on the Planar 1 that you could clearly tell that it was a studio album that had been mixed with different acoustics in slightly different places. I thought it was kind of interesting, to be honest with you, but did it sound live and real? Well, I think given the way it was probably made, you would have to have some special effects happening. And again, I think you don't want a special effects turntable or a special effects amplifier or a special effects speaker, because you have that distortion, the special effect distortion that's constantly part of the picture. But anyway, the depth of the Planar 1 Plus is very, very nice. Third element that I really enjoyed about this turntable was a general sense of smoothness. Even though it's dynamic, the treble and the mid-range don't bite you, and tonality can come through in a beautiful way when that's what we're listening for. There are some beautiful voices. I happen to like Norah Jones. I listened to Norah Jones on the Planar One. She sounded lovely, although there's that little roughness in her voice. It's not Rod Stewart territory, but he's just got a little bit of that, and it's endearing, I think, and you could hear it super clearly on the Planar One. The fourth thing I'll mention is bass to treble balance. I thought the bass was nice and warm, kind of traditional belt drive bass with enough definition that it wasn't soggy or annoying. The treble is another matter, and this is where we transition into the zone of you might love it, you might not love it. I'll just come right out and say it. I think this turntable is on the bright side. I didn't find that terribly annoying because of all the other good qualities, and it's not like those just distracted me, although they were quite interesting. But it delivers that brightness without too much baggage. If you had a system that was slightly on the warm side of the equation or slightly on the dull side of the equation, I don't really love that adjective, but slightly rolled off treble, this might be very complementary. I used Magnepan LRS Pluses, which are pretty flat up to about 15K, and again, I thought it sounded a little bit bright, but still really engaging and quite enjoyable. It's just not perfectly accurate. I know people who shy away from bright treble like the plague, so I want to tell you about that because it's there. But go back and listen to what I said about all of the other qualities, the dynamism and the sound staging and the ability to pull instruments apart so you can hear them clearly, the warmth in the bass with detail, and the general sense of smoothness. And at $725, I think we're talking about what's still an exceptional, incredible value that does a lot of what higher end products can do. And frankly, I don't quite understand how they do it in such a simple package, but that might be your answer right there. They may have kept things really simple and basic, and they've refined every little part over time, because Rega's been doing this a long, long time. There you have it in a nutshell. I think the Planar One is an exceptional turntable. What role the different elements play, the cartridge, the tone arm, the suspension design, and the phono preamp, I don't know. There's really not a way to pull that apart and still be talking about the same thing. That's what the Planar One is all about, and I hope I've given you a good idea of what's going on. I hope you enjoyed this coverage of the Rega Planar One. We'll put up on the screen some of the music that I listen to so you can get an idea of the variety of material that I listen to. I tried to stick with a heavy complement of pre-digital recordings, but I went into some modern stuff, as I said, Black Keys, and I'll bet Norah Jones is a digital recording. But I did a lot of stuff that was pre-1980 and had to be done in full analog because I have a big collection and it was easy to do, and it seems appropriate in reviewing a turntable to have an all analog chain as best I can. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. If you did, please subscribe. We would love it if you would join us. Click on the notifications button so you know when we post a new video. We do several videos per week. And of course, we would invite you to sign up for our newsletter, which comes out a couple of times a week. And we would also invite you to subscribe to the magazine. Thanks for watching.